In order to understand what's going on in the world right now, we have to go all the way back in time. By looking at how evil started in our world, you will understand why so many terrible things are happening and what we can do about it. Will you join me on a journey? In the beginning, there were many different peoples living in different places on Earth, just like nowadays. Just not as many as today. Most people lived their lives in a simple manner. They worked so they could eat, and they lived together for their safety. That didn't change much in the course of the centuries. However, there was also a group of people who thought they were much more important and special than the ordinary people. They believed all the other races on Earth were not as pure as their race. They believed they were much stronger and more intelligent than the ordinary people, and they wanted the ordinary people to work for them as slaves. They wanted to be the absolute rulers of the earth. They came from a place we now call Iraq. In the old days, this place was called Samaria. These so-called special people lived there about 7,000 years ago. Now, this group of people, let's call them the Cabal, had only one goal: to rule the earth, to enslave other people, and to serve their God, a cruel and bloodthirsty God of revenge. A God who would not judge them for harming others, but would reward them. A God who was actually a devil. The Cabal called him Moloch or Baal. This cruel God demanded them to sacrifice their firstborn, the purest form of life. They had to throw their newborn baby into a fire to prove their loyalty to the god Moloch. One of the reasons Moloch forced them to do this is because it is such a horrid, awful thing to do that you shut down your heart completely. Sacrificing your own child is so traumatic that from that moment on, all you feel is pain, despair, and fear. When your heart is shut down, you are no longer sensitive or interested in the pain and suffering you cause to others. That was exactly the kind of people Moloch needed to reach his goal, to be the one and only God of this entire world, and to be feared and worshipped by all the people. In order to reach world domination, the Cabal used all the means they had at their disposal 7,000 years ago. From the first moment onward, they used treachery and treason. The Cabal was powerful in great numbers, so their duties and tasks were divided. Many focused on gathering money and power. An easy way to do that was by attacking and robbing travelers. Often they killed their victims and took over the victim's identity, so the Cabal members could pretend to be somebody else when needed. The top of the Cabal tried to influence the rulers of the country they lived in. In the course of many centuries, they had spread throughout the world. This went rather well for quite some time. The kings were impressed by the knowledge of the members of the Cabal, who, by the way, didn't call themselves Cabal, but Knights Templar, Jesuits or Freemasons. The kings were seduced by the treachery and treason of the Cabal, and they became greedy because of the Cabal's promise to get even more gold and more power. But every time the influence of the Cabal became too big, the kings got scared of them. They felt that the Cabal had actually taken over their power, and as a result they tried to get rid of the Cabal. On many occasions this resulted in the killing of entire groups of people. For instance, on Friday 13th of October 1307, many Knights Templar were arrested and burned on the stake. That is why we still call Friday the 13th an unlucky day. This is also why a few centuries later the entire order of the Jesuits was outlawed And again, centuries later, the Freemason lodges were closed and forced to go underground. But each and every time this happened, the remaining Cabal members took on a new identity, like they had done for thousands of years, and their game of treachery and deceit started all over again. One of the Cabal's most genius disguises was that they pretended to be Jews, which is why, throughout history, the Jewish people have been persecuted and murdered. They became the scapegoat for everything that went wrong, not only in Germany in World War II, but also in England, France, Spain, Portugal, even Russia. Whenever the Cabal's power became too great, the Jews were punished and the Cabal got away with it. This happened time and again in all those countries and in all those centuries. But since people didn't travel globally as much as they do now, nobody saw this pattern abroad, and the game of the Cabal could simply go on. A dangerous game of lies and deceit, of influence, money and power. This game went on and on and on, all the way up till today. The Cabal is still playing their same dangerous game, and still only few people actually see it. And to be honest, I wouldn't have seen it either if it hadn't been for a mysterious group of people who stood up and helped us see and understand what this wicked game is all about. This group is referred to as Q. Nobody knows for sure who Q is or where it gets its information from. I have quite a few ideas and theories, but let's first have a look what Q has been up to for the last couple of years. It all started on October 28, 2017. A very important day for the Cabal, as they believe in the power of numerology, the power of numbers. When you add 2 and 8 of 28, you get 10. October is the 10th month, and when you add up all the numbers of 2017, you also get 10. According to numerology, 10 indicates a new cycle, power, strength and courage. An excellent moment to start the fall of the Cabal, don't you think? And so, on October 28, 2017, Q posted its first message on an internet chat site. Not many people noticed, but there are always some people who search the internet for extra special things. So after a few weeks they found the post and sent it to their friends. They sent it to their friends. In less than 2 months the mysterious Q had many followers. These followers now called themselves the Anons, anonymous people who dive into the continuous flow of Q posts and try to decipher them. Anonymous means they don't give their names. They work behind the scenes. Q didn't just give information about the Cabal, Q wrote in riddles. It gave hints and clues, and then waited to see if the Anons understood. Sometimes Q asked very specific questions that were easy to answer through a bit of research. And sometimes Q's posts were totally incomprehensible. I've learned that this was exactly the way it was supposed to be, because Q predicted events that you cannot understand until they actually happened in the future. Q called this future proofs past. The future will show you that what we say now will really come true. Q posted everything in English. Q obviously lives in America, and its first goal is to take down the American Cabal, after which the rest of the world will follow. Why America first? America is one of the most powerful countries in the world, where the Cabal has become so powerful, so deeply infiltrated in the government, that they almost succeeded reaching their goal of world domination. Quite scary to realize that the Cabal almost reached its goal. Q appeared just in time to warn us. However, Q cannot take down the Cabal on its own, as the Cabal is way too big and powerful. But do you know who is even more powerful than the Cabal? We, the people. The citizens of a country who are waking up and no longer accept being suppressed and exploited. That's why Q gave us riddles to solve. We had to do the homework, so to speak. We had to do the research and discover who has the power in this world to be able to see which people are good and which are evil and why. We needed to find out who this small group of excessively rich people of the Cabal truly is. Just like a puppet master. Who is the master and who are his puppets? And that's how we, the Anons, discovered secret after secret after secret, things that shocked us to the core. In school, you learn about the history of humanity, but what you don't read in your history books is who actually wrote it all down. In other words, who decided what you are supposed to believe about a certain event in history? What do you think? Whose stories end up in our history books? Those of the winners? Or those of the losers? Exactly. It's always the winners who write about the course of events, such as the wars that took place. But are the winners always the good guys? What would your life be like if the other party had won the war? Do you see what I mean? In school you learn how to think about everything that happens in this world and what to believe. You are taught whom to hate and why. But what is truth? And is there such a thing as the truth? Have you noticed that when you keep asking questions about a certain event in history, the teacher doesn't really have the answers? He only knows what he learned in school when he was young, and that is what he needs to teach you. This, however, is called propaganda, not truth. You have now seen very briefly that the origin of all evil in the world goes very far back in time. The origin of all inequality, of the difference between poor and rich people, of power and powerlessness, of bullying and being bullied, has been hidden. But we have reached a time when all that is allowed to come to light, that the truth is going to be seen. And once people start seeing the truth, once they stand up against evil, the power of the Cabal will simply disappear very quickly. Then together we can build a world in which everyone is equal, where there will be no more famine and war. This is what everyone longs for, isn't it? But first, we will have to face the truth completely. And for that, I'm going to take you to part 2.